Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about suspicious friendliness and other things. It's Tuesday, November 5, Election Day. And
It is.
so I got a few ones here. Like a fired employee at Disney World logged back into the system and changed the menu items. He changed the things with peanuts to say they didn't have peanuts and were safe for people with allergies. And then he added like profanity to the menus, and then he changed the font to wingdings. So he eventually got caught, I think, before anybody got hurt. But this reveals that Disney World is using the old-fashioned unsafe technique of having like a password that many people are sharing on the server. That's the problem. He knew the password of the servers. Instead of having individual accounts, if you try to fit a compliance frame,
Oh,
remember, this is the first thing you have to do to get PCI compliance. People have to stop sharing logins. Like you can't log in as root. You have to have a separate login for each person so you can record what they did and so you can fire somebody and remove their login and they can't come back in and do bad things.
so
So,
now Disney has to change all their common passwords because of one employee who's parted ways.
yeah. And that's why after a while you should grow up and say, look, you're supposed to have a domain controller. Everybody's supposed to have their own login, and you assign permissions to that login instead of having some shared login.
Interesting, huh?
That's a reason for it. And North
Boy.
Korea is
So,
doing,
so wait, Sam, I got a question for you. Let's just take this a little bit further.
yeah.
Let's say Disney did not catch this. Let's say somebody ordered something with peanuts.
Yeah.
Let's say that that person had a reaction to it.
Yeah.
Do you think the person would have been charged with attempted murder or murder if the person died?
I think at least reckless endangerment. And I think Disney would be charged now because they are charging people for not having a minimum level of cybersecurity now.
Yeah.
Companies, and I think this totally counts. Like they said, when Facebook had a master password for the whole database of happiness, that did not meet an acceptable level of security. And this, I think, also is a well-known thing you should never do, have shared logins.
Yeah. So this would be somebody goes to rob a bank, let's say,
Yeah.
and the person is sitting in the car as the driver. They didn't pull the trigger, but but as a result of the crime,
Yeah.
they're held accountable as if they did pull the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Contributing uh,
Yeah, contributing. Yeah. So
or
I will tell you, I do know of one case, two people in England, UK. So different set of laws, but our laws stem from UK laws. And it was I believe, an Indian restaurant where they were selling menu items and they would make peanut free, nut free dishes. And they had, the full dish with the nuts. And what happened there is the owner of the restaurant they wouldn't make the allergy free or the nut free. So a lot of times they just sell the nut version and say it's allergy free.
man.
And it turned out that this guy had a chain of restaurants, two or three, not big, but small time operator is what I would say. And twice he told employees, oh, just write on there, no nuts. We'll give him the nut version. In one case, the person went into full anaphylactic shock and they were recovered. They were able to be revived in the hospital. And the other case, they didn't. And he was charged, convicted of, I believe it was second degree murder,
Yeah.
maybe even first degree, or whatever the equivalent is. And
Absolutely.
translation is he got a long jail sentence,
Yeah.
very long.
As you should. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean that's kind of fraud and danger, man. I mean there are a whole lot of things we can mix in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't want people doing that anyway you cut it. Well, I got another one here. North Korea
Sure,
is now donating troops, 10,000 troops to Russia to fight in
I
Ukraine.
heard.
And, and, uh,
Yeah.
and so the question is, what does North Korea get? And the answer is probably Russian rockets to make more powerful missiles and to get into space. So this
I
is
see.
actually a pretty worrisome thing. I mean, North Korea already keeps on test firing these rockets, and they do have nukes, don't they? I think they do. And they would like to have intercontinental nuclear missiles like the Russians. So this is a very bad thing.
So, Sam, do you know for sure that North Korea has nukes?
I think they do. I think they've had them for years, but I'm just going by memory. I don't have a current article about it.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Has a military, yeah, so they do have a weapons program of
Oh,
2024.
absolutely. They keep firing those rockets.
Yeah, so it's claimed that they have 80 to 90 warheads,
Yeah.
plutonium based.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get to 100 it says 166 in the next 6 years.
Yeah. And it
By
makes sense that they would do this because they throw away the lives of their own citizens very casually in North Korea. So sacrificing 10,000 of them to the Russians to get rockets would be quite logical from their point of view.
Yeah, yeah. I do know when the first nuke was detonated, it was thought that it was conventional. But when these weapons are so easy to detect, nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
right? So it'd be very easy, trivial to determine conventional versus nuclear.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
got, yeah.
Sam, as a related story, I just heard this. This is kind of interesting. Metal from ships prior to the end, I'll say the end of World War II, is somewhat prized or valued in sunken ships, I should say.
Yeah.
And this has to do with nuclear, but any idea why?
No, I don't know why you would want old metal because it had
Because,
less nuclear contamination, I guess, but why would you care?
yeah, exactly. That's why they can use it as a reference.
Oh, okay, just like archaeology. Yeah, I know this because like all the water in the world has tritium in it since the first hydrogen bomb went off. And when I went to the University of Illinois, they said we know that all the water in town is coming from a supply that does not refill because there's not no tritium in this water.
Yeah, yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. Yeah. Interesting sidelights from all these, right?
yeah,
Experiments.
yeah.
Yeah.
There'd be ways to date future archaeology by the way we've altered the planet.
Yeah, I'll give you one other one. This is trivial. I just learned about this coral that grows in the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
Turns out has a clock in it.
Oh.
And you just like tree rings, you
Ah.
can tell how old coral is. And what's interesting is if you go way back, the day length or amount of time for one day is altered. And we know that
Oh yeah.
indirectly from coral.
Yeah. Yeah. It's slowing down like a second every century or something.
Yeah, and I think if you go back, I don't know when coral came about, but let's say a billion years,
Yeah.
the day length was something like about 12 hours,
No, I didn't know it got that extreme, but yeah, I know it changed.
something like that. Anyway, you got another story?
Yeah, let me do one more and then we'll go to some of yours.
Okay.
This is the one that I thought was the one that deserved the title from the silly name. So facial recognition is now being installed in stores, this company called Coresight AI, and what it will do is detect suspicious friendliness. And the point is to detect when your employees are giving deals to their friends. So if an employee seems too friendly with a customer, the AI will flag this as a possible case of like a form of employee theft. So
Hmm.
this seems like a real Brave New World stuff where
Yeah,
people
that's
look
an
at you.
interesting one. Yeah. The
Yeah.
casinos have used facial recognition for decades.
Well, sure. Now that's just the same at the airport to detect a list of people that you don't want in there. But this is
Right.
the interaction. It reminds me a few years ago in I think China or Japan, they had these things that would test to see if your smile is good enough before you go out to customers. You
Yeah.
had to smile until you, and this thing here is now down to looking for suspicious interactions between people, which is, I can see how this could go wrong. Anyway,
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of a little joke when McDonald's opened in Russia. They were training the employees and they said, now when you hand the people the food, you smile and say, have a nice day.
oh,
An employee says, excuse me, Mr. Manager, how come we have to smile? We have the food.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. There may be
Anyway,
a cultural difference there. Anyway,
cultural difference. Yeah, yeah.
that's
All
what,
right.
yep,
So election day. So since it's election day, I thought I'd bring up a couple of election related ones.
All right.
So this is interesting. We have over 100,000 polling locations in the United States that are open right now for people to vote,
Yeah,
right?
seems like several in every county. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, appropriately, hopefully appropriately. And all these people, I believe, are either volunteers and some are paid.
Yeah, I think they now get paid a little bit, but it never was
Yeah,
much. One of my friends used to do it. I know how it works. You have to go through
yeah.
hours of training and,
Yeah, and the important, you just brought it up, is they do receive hours of training,
yeah.
right?
Well, you have to
And
learn the system. Yeah.
yeah, you have to understand the system. And as we know, computers and any mechanical system, they jam, they break. If you ever worked with a printer, you know that, or a scanner, you know that they jam, they break. Some has some little problem where
Yeah.
it doesn't work. So the interesting part about this is, and I never really thought about this, is you can have an isolated incident where a poll worker doesn't really know what to do, and so they'll take a machine offline, and they're trying to do the best job they can as a volunteer, not as a well-trained professional with the limited training they have. But with social media, we can take these events and they can be amplified into a conspiracy theory. So you have one little isolated incident, and then that can blow up into a meme. Or I believe we're now, if it's a video, it's a spool, is it not? Have you heard of spools?
No, I know there's live streams, but I don't know what spools are.
Yeah, so a spool is a meme is a picture, is the way it's kind of roughly defined,
Yeah.
right? A spool is a video. That's a
Okay.
meme, a video meme.
Yeah. Well, I remember Rudolph Giuliani saw two of them handing one thing to another and turned that into a whole theory, claiming they were cheating on the election. Ended up having to pay all of his money to those women.
Yeah, yeah.
Every little,
So
little interaction, you can blow it out of proportion, which is what I'm afraid this AI is going to do, looking for you interacting with the customers.
yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of cases where police, do you remember in Salt Lake City, Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped? That
Vague.
was probably about 15, 20 years ago.
I remember the name, but I don't remember the case.
Yeah, so she was a young girl that was kidnapped out of her home, and there was a man that came in, and she was asleep with her little sister, and her little sister was in the room, and the man said, be quiet, and took her sister and left.
Hmm.
And so the girl was probably 8, 9, 10 years old, somewhere in there. And just kind of haunted her because she knew who the voice was. She instantly recognized the voice, but it was dark and she couldn't see who it was. And 9 months goes by, and the girl goes, I remember who it is. Dad, it's the guy you hired to help, around the house to do some things like gardening or something like that. I know who he is. And so they went to the police department and they said, after 9 months, you remember? Nah, that can't be true. Turns out it was.
Yeah, but I imagine you have trouble in court if that was all your evidence.
Well, yeah, but they're trying. Was still abducted at the time,
Yeah, and
so
it
they
might
were trying to
be
find
search
her.
warrant. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, it's just kind of interesting how our memories work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah. Well, I've got a
uh,
few other here. Are you done with that one?
nah, yeah. Let me just kind of add to this. I thought when we were doing our podcast months ago that we'd see a lot of AI fakes in the election.
I thought so too, and it seems like it did not happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, egg in our face. No, just an incorrect prediction.
Well, this happens all the time in security. Some new vulnerability comes out and they said, boy, everybody's going to get hacked, and then they don't. The criminals are just a
Yeah.
lot less with it, than we think they are.
Yeah. But, what came out of this was it's kind of interesting. A lot of guerrilla marketing where I mentioned the word spools, where people took videos of Kamala Harris and they make a video out of her. They change the background and they'd kind of do something, but it turned out to be, campaign material that she didn't authorize, didn't approve, and indirectly, these memes, these spools have added to her popularity.
Yeah, so that's really just sort of enthusiastic people engaging in
Yep.
art. It's not malicious,
Yeah.
which is so people are less evil than we thought they might be.
Well, in this case, and
Maybe.
the argument there is it's turned out to improve her position in the polls.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something you expect when you're fans of anything, fans of a band or anything will make like artistic things, show off how much they love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, where I'm going with this is I think the Trump campaign didn't see this coming. And I don't think anybody would have seen this coming.
Well, logically they should. I mean, that's
But
basically
we
yeah, yeah. But the Trump campaign is particularly bad this time. They just seem to be half-hearted idiots, not even trying, like constantly stepping on their own message. They
Yeah,
seem to have really lost it. Like, I mean,
yeah.
it seems like they really want to lose almost. I mean, the way they're something's
It,
gone
it,
badly wrong with their systems.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And do you have another voting related?
I don't think I have any about voting. Did nothing
Well,
came up.
let me
Talk about
just,
it. Yeah,
yeah, let's just stick on the topic here. I have one last one.
yeah.
And do you, I have a little bit about this, but I heard a story. Why don't we have internet voting, right? We have internet
Oh, some
transactions.
companies
We,
do, but the experts all say it's not safe enough.
yeah. And a lot of people try and compare it to purchasing, making a financial transaction.
Right. Well, the problem with that is you have a receipt. You either get the product or you get a receipt. In voting, you don't. So it's a
Right.
really different kind of transaction.
Yeah, yeah. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. People are saying, why don't we have smart voting online for my smartphone over the internet?
Yeah, I remember
And there,
this a few years ago, and I was satisfied with that answer. I said, if you can do financial transactions, you can do voting. And they said, well, it's fundamentally not the same because
right.
in a financial transaction, you give someone money and you get something. So there is some kind of evidence and some kind of finality to it. But in voting, you put in your vote and you just have to trust that they're not doing bad things with it. That's why all these conspiracy theories appear. How do you ever really know they don't falsely record your vote? Well, you don't really.
Yeah, you don't. But as I mentioned earlier, we have 100,000 polling locations.
Yeah.
And in order for this conspiracy to work, sure, it might be in one or two polling locations. But think of the number of people that would have to be part of the conspiracy and no one say anything or mention about it.
Yeah, I think that's our real security is not technological. It's from the humans involved. And
Yeah.
the high patriotism of the humans involved. I mean, look when
Yes.
Trump tried to overthrow the election, and it kept on being Republicans that stopped him, saying, I'm on your side, but I'm not going to let you do a bad thing because I'm patriotic. That's the thing we discovered. I think our system relies on general goodwill of most of the people involved.
Yeah, I would agree. And I just saw somebody brag that they on Facebook that they voted 7 times for Trump. And they
Yeah.
said, this is how I did it. I'm a property manager in California. My tenants moved out. I got their ballots and I voted for them.
Well, now
I voted for Trump using their ballots.
well, that I think is the most common form of fraud. Like people vote for their dead relatives or for people in their household, and that could really
Yeah.
happen. I don't think there is any real defense against that.
But would you go on to Facebook and say, I just committed a federal crime?
Well, that's an issue. You might now because you do want to spread, you know, people not believing in the election because that's the thing to do. So Trump could claim he won when he didn't win. So I mean, it is kind of the game. It's yep. But I mean, that kind of fraud probably does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it's happened a lot. I listened a little bit of history of voting. And, it used to be you go back 150, 200 years ago that you'd go to vote and you'd get a drink after you'd vote. Your candidate would buy drinks for
Oh yeah, they
everybody.
would just pay you to vote for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And that's
And
it.
that was considered acceptable then.
Well, that's what Elon's doing, and apparently it's acceptable still.
Yeah, but yeah, it,
It's
it
not quite
is
that
look
blatant.
like it looks like he's getting a little foul, but I don't think much is going to come of this.
The judge let him off. Yeah,
Oh, they did?
yeah,
Okay, I didn't follow that. All right, Sam, what's your next story? Enough for the voting.
yeah. So Toyota
Yes.
supposedly has a new battery for cars that is not lithium. It's a solid state battery, and it supposedly goes 745 miles. So that's interesting. I don't think it's in mass production yet, but there may be obstacles, but that sounds like the next step forward for EVs.
Yeah. So is this a solid state battery?
That's what they say, a solid state battery. They don't give more details about how it is. It's on the Top Speed website. And
I see. Okay.
they have a picture of it, and it looks like a container full of flat index cards. So it's some kind of layers of some kind of fabric looking stuff.
Okay.
They say it's lighter and smaller and goes further. So it'll help. The problem with EVs is they're very heavy because they have all these batteries in them. They're like a pickup truck full of dirt.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
had better batteries, they could reduce that.
Okay.
Got
So
it.
we'll see. Interesting with Toyota
Hmm.
is Toyota believed the future was all in hydrogen or compressed natural gas,
Right.
and they came really late to the show
Yep.
for EVs.
Yep. But they
So it,
pretty much dominate hybrids, I think.
yeah, yeah, but it's interesting that now that they've come up with some new technology
Yeah.
for batteries. So
Well,
we'll see. We'll
yeah.
see.
There's a technical one here. Okta has a bug where if your username, I think Okta is like a two-factor authentication cloud identity service, but if
Right.
your username is 52 characters long, any password will do. And this makes me wonder what they're doing on the back end. The only case I know where this actually matters is where you're actually sticking it in a variable and not checking for length. So it like bumps the other out of the equation. Um, it's surprising they would have this kind of error. Now they're fixing it, I guess, but they have already fixed it supposedly. But that reminds me, remember Windows 95 would only check, I think, the first 8 characters of your password. You could put anything after that and it didn't matter.
Yeah, I believe well,
Something like that. Maybe it was
yeah,
7.
something like that. Yeah, yeah, it would break it at 8, right? It would chop the password
Yeah.
into, yeah.
And Hotmail did that too. So
Okay.
and these all strongly suggest that you're handling the password literally instead of hashing it, which is pretty outrageous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Good
So
point. Good point.
yeah, yeah. And I mentioned this probably maybe the most important one. There's a doomsday glacier. You remember Trump in his speeches says, global warming is just going to raise the ocean level by a 16th of an inch in 500 years. Well, it's not quite that. What it is there's an Antarctic glacier which is holding back so much ice that if it melts, it will raise the ocean by 11 feet. And that would be catastrophic. And they do expect it to melt within the next 50 or 100 years. And now they've been analyzing, watching how the water flows in, how the warm water flows in to melt it. And they're actually proposing that we build underwater barriers to slow down the passage of warm water into it to make it last longer. And this is one form of geoengineering that they say is really urgent. The other kind of geoengineering we hear about is putting like things up in the air to reflect the sun back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
cool the whole planet. But they say you actually have to put in like sort of a dike around this one glacier to prevent it from melting. And that's, by the way, that's what we can expect. As the ocean rises, we're going to have to put dikes around our cities. They're going to become like Venice, or Venice where they let the water in. I think it's Holland, right, where they have a dike to keep
yeah,
it
yeah.
out. And they say
Ve-
all towns like San Francisco are going to have a dike because they're going to be below sea level.
Yeah, it's interesting. Venice is flooding. So the ground floor apartments in some areas that are on the canals, I believe, are uninhabitable because of the water level.
Yeah,
And you're right, it is Holland is reclaim the sea.
yeah,
So, and they used that for farmland decades ago.
yep. So
So yeah, and San Francisco does have high water at times down by the Embarcadero where the waves are kind of,
and the Great Highway is becoming, they're having to abandon it. They're going to have to turn it into a park. It's rushing out and falling apart, so the cars won't be able to use it anymore. We have
yeah,
erosion of the coast,
yeah, yeah,
and that's without
interesting.
any major sea level rise.
Yeah, Sam, a little piece of trivia, if you go out to the beach there, Ocean Beach,
Yeah,
they've dumped some like rock to kind of protect against erosion. And if you go out there, you can find tombstones.
Ah, that's
So
wrong.
when the cemeteries in downtown San Francisco were being moved out to
Puma, yeah.
Colma, yeah. If nobody claimed the body or the tombstone, instead of moving it, they just took the tombstone and used it for erosion control.
Yeah, I guess they would. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Kind of funny part there. You got another one for us?
Yeah, I think I'll just do mention one more, which is
Okay.
there's a big one on Wired from Joseph Cox again, talking about the massive crime industry that's hacking billion-dollar companies. And the point is something I think others in the industry have known for a while, but apparently it's even more efficient. You can perform a crime wave without really knowing what you're doing technically. You just buy the pieces from various companies. There's one company that does phishing, and they deploy info stealers, and they steal everything once they get code execution on a machine because somebody clicks on a link or downloads a
Yeah.
file. They that used to just try to steal the cryptocurrency wallet keys, but now they steal everything, all the stored passwords, all the session cookies from the browser. They steal all that and then they sell it to other people who will now be able to log into those systems and perform more attacks like ransomware or whatever. And they just talk about these steps, how you can just build components you buy from different criminal undergrounds to deploy your crime wave. Just sort of
So
like,
the, yeah, this has sort of been around for a while. We had ransomware as a service,
yeah.
right?
And this is now called crime as a service. Yeah.
Yeah, so crime as a service. And the
Yeah.
maturity model is improving there a little bit.
Yeah, so the underground economy is just like the above ground economy where you just buy components and build a computer. You don't actually build any of them or even necessarily understand them in detail. And the same thing's true of the bad guys. There's a big article going through the modern version of it, and they say they're attacking all the billion-dollar companies with this stuff now because the ransomware is better and the info stealers are better. And it's really
Yeah, of
hard to
course.
imagine any way to defend yourself from this stuff. I mean, how, unless I think you go to like Zscaler, how do you know that every single employee is not making a mistake? You're going to have to
Exactly.
you're going to have to go to zero trust. You're going to have to assume that some of your employees have probably been compromised, and you're going to have to limit the lateral movement.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're exactly right. We need to change our model. And with zero trust, you trust no one.
Yeah,
And you put all of your servers behind essentially firewalls so that they don't have incoming connections. Instead, you go to a Zscaler, or similar product, Zero Trust.
yeah,
You provide your credentials, and then the server makes an outbound connection to you. Is essentially how that works.
yeah, yeah. It makes sense. And
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, Sam, I've got one more story. This is a little bit involved. You have any more?
I'm not going to do it anymore. I think I've done enough.
Okay. So this is out of Shasta County, but it does have a connection down to the Bay Area to Sonoma County. And a year and a half ago, there was a 9-year-old girl who entered into the county fair a goat named Cinder. And it was her pet goat as part of her 4-H project. And she was going to have it auctioned off and it was to be slaughtered. And it was known that. So the mom, and then this is common 4-H, right?
Oh,
Kids learn farm. I'm not sure what the term is, but farming or livestock. How to handle birthing and raising for food,
okay.
right? And it's a goat, okay. And I'm here, Alameda County, Contra Costa County. It's done here. 4-H is done here,
Yeah,
just like it is all throughout the country. So the twist is that it was going up for auction at the end, and she knew that. They signed a contract saying that the goat would be given to 4-H club for auction, and what would happen to the animal. And lots of kids do that, so that's normal. The only difference is that she was 9. Her mother signed the contract, and this is where the story gets a little bit interesting. So Cinder, or the 9-year-old girl's, I think, grandparents or one of the grandparents or both had died. And so it became a pet, if you will, right? Like a dog or a cat or a bunny. And she became very attached to it. And the last night before the auction, the girl spent the night in the pen with the goat at the fair. And okay. And anyway, and Shasta County Fair, just a little piece of trivia here, I believe is in the city of Weed. So there's a city up in Shasta County called Weed, and there's kind of a joke behind that, but
Mhm.
that's a different story. Okay, so the goat goes up for auction. I believe a state senator from California is the one who bought it. Typical PR for. So he buys the goat. The mom contacts the woman who runs the 4-H club, who coordinates all this. And she said, look, my daughter, we can't put it up for auction. And she said, oh, no, the goat's going up for auction. It's going to be slaughtered. We got to teach these kids a lesson. We might as well start now. So you see where this is going. This story gets even worse.
Yeah.
So the mom says, look, I'll pay you whatever it is. I'll buy it. And she said, nope, you can't buy it. It's part of the contract. It's got to be auctioned off. So the senator, the lawmaker for California buys the goat, spends, I don't know, $10,000. I'm making up a number because I don't know the exact fee. And the mom says, look, senator or lawmaker, my daughter's attached to the goat. The guy says, look, I don't want the goat. I'm doing this to be a good guy, right? You can have the goat. So now they have the goat. And again, the mom is willing to pay whatever the auction fee was and the whole. So everybody would be made whole. But no, the woman that runs the 4-H club says, nope, that goat's going out for slaughter. So the mom and the daughter take the goat. They bring it down to Sonoma County. The woman that runs the 4-H club goes to local law enforcement, which I believe would be the sheriff in the county. And they said, oh, goat theft? We're going to go to court. We're going to get a warrant to seize the goat. Now, this gets interesting, Sam. So they knew the goat was on a farm in Sonoma County. They go to the judge. The judge says, you have the address of where the goat is? And they said, yes, we do, Your Honor. Judge says, fine, I'm giving you, this is important to the story, I'm giving you an order to get the goat from that address. Sheriff drives down, what is it, 500-mile trip? 3 officers drive to Sonoma County. They go there and they say, oh, the goat's not here. And they said, well, we have a warrant to get the goat. And they said, no, it's at another farm. So the sheriff drives to the other farm, says, we have a warrant for the goats to seize the goat. They say, well, let's see the warrant. The warrant says, I'm making this up just to make the story go a little easier. They said, but it's not for our address. You can't get a goat here, that goat here. So they said, no, we're taking it. We're not going to abide by the warrant. So they took the goat. They went back up. The goat was slaughtered. Cinder, the goat, was slaughtered. Local lawyer gets a hold of it. And this story went viral a year and a half ago. 9-year-old girl,
Uh-huh.
goat gets seized, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So here we are, the gears of our legal system turn. So Shasta County Sheriff's Department has to pay $300,000 to the girl for illegally seizing the goat.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, you'd think that, sorry for, nice payoff to the girl, right? I mean, sad it happened, but you
yeah.
can't bring the goat back. So 300,000 should maybe help her be a little bit happy. But the story's not over yet because the 4-H club and the county fair has not settled either. And what's interesting is this wasn't a court decision. This was the sheriff's department that agreed to a settlement, which now means these officers can testify in the other part of the case against 4-H and the county fair.
Man,
So, this is a case of how the heck did adults get so crazy over this stuff?
I can see it.
You
Like
can?
that's kind of the point of 4-H is you have to learn to accept the fact that animals get slaughtered. So the person that made that decision probably felt like they were justified.
Yeah, yeah. I, but But sometimes they're extenuating circumstances.
Well, it reminds me of one that is in fact affecting the election now, which is peanut. This is a big deal. I just uh,
What is peanut? Help me out.
some guy in a state, I think New York City, he found an injured squirrel and nursed it back to health and made it a pet. And he also did this with a raccoon, and they became stars on Instagram. Him dressing up
Oh,
and then the state came in and said, no, you're not allowed to have a squirrel or a raccoon because they are bubonic plague risks. So the state impounded them and euthanized them. And so this Donald Trump and Elon Musk have made a big deal about how unjust this is, and they need to change the laws. You should be allowed to have your pets. And they started a cryptocurrency called Peanut, which has $150 million investment in it. And it's becoming a big issue. This is a part of the election. This is the thing. I was driving out to Los Medanos a few days ago, and I passed this um, bridge, and all across the entire bridge, they had big signs hanging down that said, "Get the boys out of girls' sports." And so both of these, I think, are ridiculous election issues where they take some small case affecting almost nobody and they blow it up into something to change the national election based on this. There are, I think, a very small number, like not even one per state, of trans boys in girls' sports. And there was this one squirrel that got seized and killed,
yeah.
which is, that's kind of bad, but it doesn't mean you should change the whole direction of the nation to respond to this one incident. And this is the way you run an emotional campaign. You come up with some ridiculous story about trans boys sneaking into girls' bathrooms or something, and you blow it up to think this is happening everywhere when it isn't.
Yeah. So I think this should be a term, social media amplification.
Yeah, I think it goes even before social media. I think I have a feeling if you look back in the time of newspapers like the 1700s, you'd find the same thing where one case gets blown up and everybody treats it like it's an exemplar of a common crime when it isn't. But yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's no question that newspapers doctored photos
yeah,
and sensationalized ads to sell newspapers.
yeah, and people get emotional. You choose some high emotional issue, and everybody will
Yeah.
freak out and say this proves you're a bad person because you're on the other side of this highly emotional issue. When I would say a logical analysis would say it doesn't really matter. Anyway, it turns out that that's one of the big issues in the last few days before the election is Peanut the squirrel.
Peanut the squirrel. Okay, I've not heard of Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah,
I've not seen that, but I have seen the people on the overpass
yeah,
with other election related issues.
yeah. And that's free speech. But I think it's irrational to focus on a tiny little corner case that doesn't happen much as a big issue when it isn't really.
Well, it's like shark attacks, right? Oh, I'm not going to go to the
Yeah.
beach because of shark attacks.
Yeah, and when I read the
And
book, What Happened to Kansas, they said this is what happened. Kansas was a blue state, and the Republicans decided to make it a red state. So they started saying uh, they're tolerating gay people and they're going to make your kid gay by accepting gay people in schools. And so they made them feel like you had to vote Republican to stop those gay people from turning your kid gay. That was the big issue. It was a very
did it
simple.
work?
Yeah, it worked. Kansas became a red state.
I
So
see. Okay.
yeah, well, this is one form of politics.
Yeah. Well, that's it for me, Sam.
Yeah. That's it for me too. So we'll have
Okay.
another one of these on Friday, and
Friday.
maybe we'll even know who the president is by then, but maybe not.
Well, if you read news headlines from the past week, Trump has already won.
Most of the people I listen to say Kamala is actually favored, but the problem is there are probably going to be court battles and denials and uncertified results and probably a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of chaos.
yeah. Sam, I heard that RFK Jr., did I
Yeah.
get that right? Yeah.
Yeah. He was on my
It,
ballot.
yeah, he's on my ballot too, but
Boy, he tried to get off. Yeah.
he's already been appointed by Trump to be in charge of health. And the first
Well,
thing he's already proclaimed
yeah.
is we got to get fluoride out of the water because it's poison, it's a
Yeah.
byproduct, and
Yeah. No fluoride, no seed oil, and no vaccines.
yeah,
However,
yeah.
however, he is claiming that Trump promised him he's going to put him in charge of all the health departments, but that isn't very likely to happen because Trump doesn't really follow through on his promises very much.
And that's a promise.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he also promises, end income tax and put in huge tariffs and do a whole lot of crazy things. That's why, anyway, hopefully none of that's going to happen.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, that's it. Let's wrap it, huh?
Okay. Yep. Farewell.